Hello everyone. Today's poem is Xiaoya, Cai Wei, a Xiaoya poem from the Book of Songs. This poem is very famous for two reasons. First thing first, the title Cai Wei to collect one of the herb, a type of wild veggies. So this term Cai Wei becomes an alternative term to go to as a hermit. So the hermit or the spirit of hermit is quite fundamental for the classic ancient Chinese. So whenever you write down or you talk the term Cai Wei, first thing first, as a Chinese, we thought about a hermit, or you want to be a hermit. The second thing is it's a very famous poem about patriotism. Well, it's the thoughts or mindset for today's people. I think for the poet, for the Zhou people, this poem basically they just express their real feelings and they write down what happened and what they thought in their mind. They don't have the concept like us, sort of the patriotism or anti-war. Someone think this poem is express the feeling of anti-wars. I don't think so, because the war described in this poem is to protect their homeland. So how could you against a war to protect your homeland? In this poem, it's really hard to tell if the poet want to express the feelings or something associated with the hermit. And it's really hard to tell. But why everybody take this term as a hermit or something with hermit? Because there is an old story about Cai Wei. So before the Zhou dynasty, there is a kingdom. The geographic area is basically around Beijing today. And the big brother and the third brother, the name Boyi Shuqi is a very famous term in the Chinese literature. They are considered to be the first hermit in the Chinese history. So they heard about the Zhou state is quite a good state, well ruled, and the kings with the highest standard of moral. So they just gave their throne to their second brother. So the big brother and the third brother, they went to the Zhou state to pay a visit. So at that time, it's still the Shang dynasty, at the very end of the Shang dynasty. And these two brothers, they are the direct descendants from the Shang royal families. But at that time, they think the Shang dynasty has some big problems. The king not ruled well, the moral standards fallen down. So when they heard the story about Zhou state, they just, okay, let's go there and have a look. On their halfway, they encountered the army of the Zhou state. The army is to put down the Shang dynasty. And the two brothers tried to persuade the king of Zhou that to withdraw from this war, because in their words, the Shang dynasty, of course, is not good for the moment. It's really bad for the moment. But it's even worse to overthrow the bad Shang dynasty with the power of violence, with the blood. So that's in Chinese, 以暴易暴. So the ruling of the Shang dynasty is violent, but you cannot change that ruling, change that dynasty with violence. So that's the basic idea from these two brothers, Bo Yi, Shu Qi, were famous historical figures. Of course, the king of Zhou Wang, doesn't listen to these two brothers, and he keep moving on to the capital of Shang, and then finally he take down the Shang dynasty. And these two brothers and heard the story that the Shang dynasty was taken down by the king of Zhou, and he said, I would never eat a single grain of the Zhou dynasty. So they climbed up a nearby mountain, Xiaoya. They eat the wild veggies or the grass, maybe, which is wei. So wei is a grass, a wild veggies. So there's so many arguments what type of the grass or what type of wild veggie it is. But either of the explanation could satisfy my understandings, and so it's unknown questions for today's people. But I do believe it's this wild grass should be very, very popular and prosperous. It grows everywhere. Thus, from the stories of Bo Qi and Shu Yi, the term Cai Wei became an alternative term of hermit. Now let's get to this long poem. It has total of 6 paragraphs, and the first 3 paragraphs, they share the same writing style and patterns, and from the 4th to 6th paragraphs, it's another writing styles. In this video, I will go through the first 3 paragraphs and finish all the poems in another video. Okay, the first paragraph. 采薇采薇，薇以作之. Collecting the wild veggie, collecting the wild veggie. And this wild veggie is starting to grow. So this tells us the seasons is the very, very early spring. And 做 means doing something. So how could a plant, a grass, start doing something? It means it start to grow. The ending character 止 has no meanings, just like in the most of the poems in the Book of Songs. Okay, let's continue. 月归月归，岁以末止. Let's go back. Let's go back. And it's the end of the years. 归, so this is also a very, very important terms in the Chinese classic literature. The very original meaning is going home, go back to the homes. And this poem connect the 2 terms together. 采薇 collect the wild grass and going back home. So finally, in the later times when a poem is telling something about going home, it might probably imply to be a hermitage. Of course, the going home is also derived from the meaning that go to the destination, the ultimate destinations. It's just like no matter how this guy he was, the ultimate goal for him is going back home. He can go for the wars for 3 months, for 10 years, but after that wars, he will come back to his home. Even he was killed in the battlefield, his corpse will be sent back to his home. So the home is the ultimate destination for ancient Chinese. So that means you choose the life as a hermit. So that could also be one of the ultimate goals. So the sort of the life goal for today's people. At the very beginning, this is the most famous and most important part of this poem, Cai Wei, Yue Gui. So for now, the takeaways, Cai Wei and Yue Gui, they both has a very, very strong relationship with Hermit. And basically, Cai Wei almost identical to the Hermit, or to be a hermit. And Gui is only partially related with the hermit because it's more likely to be treated as the ultimate goal or the lifelong goal for a person. To be a hermit is just one of that goals. You could choose the way to be a hermit. You could choose your way to be a hero in the battlefield, or you could choose your way to be a scientist, to be a politician, to be a doctor, to be a teacher, whatsoever. So they could always be put as gui, one type of gui. And also the most fundamental meaning of gui is going back home. So that's all it's about. 迷是迷家，闲允之故。I lost my home. I lost my family temples. It's all because of the nomad people, 闲允. 闲允 is the name for the nomad people from the north, from the northwest. So fundamentally, the Asian Chinese is peasant, is farmers. And the battle or the conflict between the nomad from the north with the Chinese as a farmer's peasant is the mainstream conflict or battles through the Chinese history. And you can see that from the very, very beginning in the Zhou dynasty, the battles, the conflicts between the Zhou people with those nomad in the north is a very, very big trouble for the Zhou people. And even they lost their home, their temple for homes. So be careful the term 家 and 市. So for today's 家 is home, 市 is one single room in that house. But in the time of Zhou dynasty, 家 means the temple for that big family. The ancestors was honored and was prayed in that temple. And the shi is quite similar, but it refers to one closet or one room in that big temple, because the family temple normally consists of the several rooms. Each room has different ancestors if it's a big family with history. So here you can see that the damage by the nomad, by Yan Yun, is so big. Even the temple was damaged. So that has actually go to the most limit of the Zhou people. 不遑起居，言允之故. There's no time to have a rest. It's all because of the people of Yan because of the enemies. They destroyed our homeland. They destroyed our family temples. So in the first paragraph, it tells two things with very, very strong contrast. First thing first, the warrior, the soldier, or the poet is so tired of the war. He wants to go back to his home. 越归越归. He wants to go back to his home. And also, there are some other things we can see that they are living on the wild veggies. So the life condition is very poor in the battlefield. And then he explained why he was bearing such a poor life and why he was in the battlefield. Because his homeland was totally destroyed by their old enemy, the nomad people, Yan. Another very important background for the Zhou people is it's the early spring. It's the time to go to the farming field. Without hard working in the farming field, there would be no harvest in the autumn, and there will be no food for everyone. So this is really a critical job, a critical work for the Zhou people. Even in the code of Zhou dynasty, the Zhouli, or the law of the Zhou dynasty, Zhouli, it write down the rules very clearly. So basically there are 4 seasons. In which season the Lord could ask those peasants, those farmers who's under him to do something. Basically, from the spring till the summertime, the Lord could never push the farmers, the peasants, to do anything. The only thing he could do to push them to go to the farming field, to do the farming work. And the rest of the things, let's say, build up a house, build up a new city, or go to the wars, this could only be done after the harvest, in the autumn and the winter. So basically, if you want to have a war with another state, you could only start your war at the end of the autumn's time and finish that war before the spring and come back, and then allow those soldiers, basically they are all the farmers in the ordinary day, to go back to the farming field. So this is very, very critical. For today's people, it's hardly to understand, but it was all recorded and defined in the code of conduct for the in the Zhou dynasty. And even the lord of the state or the king of Zhou should obey those laws. So with a very simple word in the first paragraph, we know the home was damaged. The temple of the ancestors was damaged. That's also a very, very critical thing for Zhou people. And then it's the springtime. Even I'm living on a poor condition, I'm eating the grass all day long, but that's not a big deal. The big deal is I need to go back to home, to go to the farming field. Otherwise, my families or even all the Zhou people won't have food in the next years. So that's why this poem was so touching to the Zhou peoples, because the timing and the term 越归越归, let's go home, let's go home. If you are a Zhou people and you are on the battlefield in the early spring. So if you are telling this word to your buddies, to your brothers, or to your pals, let's go home, let's go home. That will be so touching and arousing. Okay, let's go to the second paragraph. Basically, the third paragraph is almost identical to the first one, and it's repeating the words 采薇采薇，月归月归. So just imagine if you are a people, Zhou people, and with all those things bearing in your mind, what would you do? Okay, the second paragraph. 采薇采薇，微以柔之. So collecting the wild veggies. The wei is really soft. So the wei is 微以柔之. The veggie is the plant, the grass is soft. It means it has grown up above the ground and it's very soft. So it's in the mid-spring, still in the spring's time. Everything is prosperous and soft. So in the first paragraph, the grass is just starting to grow. It's around the end of the year and the very beginning of the year. And in the second paragraph, it's roughly mid-spring already. The grass is prosperous and very soft. And this is the most needed time for those men and that for the farming field. So that's why this poet, this soldier, this husband or this son is so worried. He's worrying about his home, about his family. Okay, let's continue. 忧心烈烈，宰饥宰渴. So I worried so much, and all those things one by one shows up. 忧心, I worried very much. 烈烈, it's identical to least. So all those things that worry him one by one is listed and show up. 宰饥宰渴, I'm so hungry. I'm so thirsty. And remember the term 宰, it has no meaning. It's used in front of a verb or adjective. 我数未定，迷使归聘. Our camp was always changing, and we even cannot send messengers back to home. 戍 means to guard somewhere or in a garrison. 未定 is not fixed. They are always changing their places that reflect the battles. The wars is quite uncertain and they are moving around all the time. 迷使归聘, pin means visit. 归聘 means he sent someone, a messenger or someone, to go back to their home, maybe to send some messages to them or to tell the victories to them. But so far, nothing is certain, and still they are in the very middle of the war. So the second paragraph repeated the feelings more strongly. Going home and worrying became so strong, 忧心烈烈, and also their own status is very poor, is very thirsty and very hungry. And one thing could also explain this weariness, as the Chinese has a saying to describe this period of early spring. 青黄不接, which means in this period of time during the years, the food stocks is very, very few. Sometimes you just run out of your food stocks. and you should be very careful, or maybe you should bear in your hungry until the next harvest. So here, that's also explained why this poet, his worry became stronger and stronger, because he feels the thirsty, he feels the hungry, and then very easily arouse his weariness to his families back in his home. My father, my old mother, my wife, my sons, my little sons, my little daughters, they are experiencing the same thirsty, same hungry with me in this poor time in the early springs. If I don't go back home, or if I don't find something to eat for them, how could they lead their lives? So this is all about the homesick and the weariness about his home, his family members. Okay, the third paragraph. 采薇采薇，薇以刚直。Collecting the wild veggie, collecting the wild veggie. The grass is becoming so hard and rigid. So here actually is telling the time is changing, the season is changing, and it's most probably is the winter's time. The leaves has fallen down and the stems became dry out and hard, because these soldiers, the poets, they are living on those wild veggies. So the changes on the seasons, on the times, are all reflected on what they eat. In the early spring, in the springtime, the grass is soft, is fresh, and even it's not something very good to eat, but it still feels okay. But when it goes to the autumn's time and winter's time, there's no leaves on the grass, only the stems is so hard to chew. 月归月归，岁已阳止。Let's go home, let's go home. The year is October now. So actually this sentence, 岁已阳止, is not very well sure by most of the people, but normally we think it's October. The October for in the lunar calendar is the starting of winter. It's roughly November in today's calendar. So be careful when we see talking about the seasons and the months in lunar calendar. It's a little different from the calendar we use today. 王室迷谷，不遑起处。The king's affairs never stop. We have no time to stay down, to stay somewhere for a long time. So 王室, the affairs of the king. What is the affair of the kings? Two things. The pray to the ancestors in the family's temple. 在祀在戎, and 在戎 means war. Those two things. The pray to the god, to the ancestors, and the second affair for the king is the war. So here it refers to the war. So this war never stops. 不遑起处. So there's no time for us to stay down. This reflects the war with the nomad people. It's not something they have the camp to confront each other. The nomad people is always touring around. So these soldiers, the poet, they have to go after or hide away from those nomad people. They had to move around all the time. 忧心恐惧，我行不来。My weariness was so big, I was so ill with my worry, and the way back to my home, there's no people coming to us from home. So here, finally, this concludes something. The poet, the soldiers, are in the utmost weariness now, because almost 1 year passed, and there's not even a person come from their home, so they don't have any message from their home. So they have no idea what their families, their father, mother, their wife, their daughter, their son, their children, how is the life of them? Are they still alive? Are they? Do they have something to eat? There's so many questions. So the last thing the soldier, the poet, thought about is not of himself. He's living on a very, very poor condition. He's living on the very hard, joyful grass. And they keep moving around all the time. They never have a time to have a rest. But for all the year past, the weariness is about his family. The harvest, the family members, are they still alive? No message at all. And on the other hand, in the second paragraph, 迷失归聘, they themselves even don't send back the messengers back to home. So the two parties, they have no information about each other at all. What a mess, what a miserable, what a weariness it is. So the first 3 paragraphs basically gave us the big story. The poet, as a soldier, is somewhere far, far from his home. They are moving around all the time to chase or to hide away from the nomad, the enemy, Xianyun, the race of Xianyun. And it almost 1 year passed. They have no information about their families back their home. And their home, before they leave their home, their family temples was all destroyed by their enemies. And 1 year passed. The soldier, the poet, worried who would do the works in the farm field, who can feed, how can his family was feed, what can they live on, what kind of food they live on. There's no message. He was in such a worry of his home. The weariness goes to utmost in the first 3 paragraphs. And let's see how this poet continues in the rest of the 3 paragraphs. Okay, that's for today, and bye-bye.